Welcome back to Talk Tickers, the show where we break down these earnings calls so you don't have to. And today we're going to be diving deep into Pfizer's Q4 2024 performance.
Yeah.
They had a pretty massive year, so let's unpack it all.
Yeah. Big year, big year. A lot going on. They've been busy.
Yeah.
Kind of transforming the company, integrating a huge acquisition with Segan, completely revamping their R&D, restructuring commercial operations, all while keeping the financials strong. So
They pulled it off.
They exceeded their own goals for the year, with a strong focus on setting themselves up for future success.
Okay.
In fact, their commercial team was so effective, they snagged the top spot in the 2024 industry rankings for Salesforce effectiveness.
That's impressive. But let's talk money. What kind of numbers are we looking at here?
So total revenue for the year was a whopping $63.6 billion.
Okay.
And even more impressive, when you take out their COVID-related products, they still saw a 12% increase in revenue.
So it's not just a COVID success story. Their core business is doing really well. What's driving that growth?
Well, their oncology division is on fire.
Okay.
They have some real powerhouse drugs like Padcev, which when combined with pembrolizumab has become kind of the leading therapy for a certain type of bladder cancer. And get this, they're expecting data that could triple the number of patients who could benefit from this combination.
Triple, that's huge.
Yeah.
Are there other oncology wins that we should be paying attention to?
Absolutely. They have another drug combo, Braftovi and Mektovi,
Okay.
that's seeing fantastic growth. Plus, they just announced some really positive results in a study for colorectal cancer.
Okay, I'm starting to see why they're ranked so highly for their sales force.
Okay.
But it sounds like it's not just about selling existing products. They're putting a ton of effort into developing new ones too, right?
Yeah, you're right. 2025 is going to be a big year for Pfizer's R&D.
Okay.
They have a ton of potential new drugs in the pipeline.
Oh.
For example, they just started a major late-stage study for a new breast cancer drug called atirmociclib. It's a CDK4 inhibitor, which is a type of drug that blocks a specific protein involved in cancer cell growth.
Got it.
They're also testing it in combination with another promising drug called vepdegestrant, which works by breaking down the estrogen receptor.
Okay.
This combination could be a real game changer for women with breast cancer.
It sounds like they're really pushing the boundaries in cancer research.
Yeah.
What else is cooking in their R&D labs?
Well, they're also working on some exciting new therapies for lung cancer, including a drug called sigvotatug vedotin.
Okay.
This is what's known as an antibody drug conjugate, which is basically a super targeted missile that delivers a powerful toxin directly to cancer cells.
Got it.
They're also making great progress with a drug called orex-fio for multiple myeloma, a type of blood cancer. This one is already showing fantastic results, and a successful late-stage study this year could triple the number of patients who could benefit from it.
Wow, it sounds like they're covering a lot of ground. And what about vaccines? Pfizer's a major player in that space, right?
Yeah, absolutely. They're continuing to innovate in the vaccine space, particularly with their pneumococcal vaccine program.
Right.
They're about to start a major study for their PCV25 vaccine, which is designed to protect against 25 different strains of pneumococcal bacteria.
Wow.
And get this, they're already working on a next generation vaccine that could cover over 30 strains.
That's incredible. They're really thinking ahead. But let's be honest, we can't talk about Pfizer without mentioning the elephant in the room, COVID. Where do things stand with Paxlovid and their vaccine Comirnaty?
Yeah, well, it seems like the COVID situation is finally stabilizing. They're seeing more predictable patterns in disease burden, which is good news for their Paxlovid sales.
Okay.
They're also seeing stable vaccination rates and have locked in some solid international contracts for Comirnaty.
Yeah.
So while COVID revenue might not be the explosive growth story it once was, it's looking like a reliable and predictable part of their business.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've talked about impressive sales, a packed R&D pipeline, and stable COVID revenue. What about the bottom line? How are their financials looking overall?
They're in a very strong position.
Okay.
They're really focused on expanding their profit margins and reducing their debt. Their cost-cutting efforts are making them a much leaner organization. Plus, they're sharing the wealth with their shareholders by returning a healthy chunk of change through dividends.
Okay, so they're making money, investing in the future, and rewarding their investors. Sounds like a winning formula. But what about 2025? What's their outlook for the coming year?
They're projecting revenue to be between $61 and $64 billion,
Okay.
with adjusted earnings per share between $2.80 and $3.
Yeah.
However, there's a bit of a wrinkle.
Okay.
They're anticipating a roughly $1 billion hit to their revenue due to changes in Medicare Part D drug pricing.
Okay.
It's mostly going to impact their higher-priced drugs early in the year.
Ah, the joys of government regulation.
Yeah.
But even with that headwind, they seem confident about hitting their targets.
They have a diverse portfolio of products, they're managing their costs carefully, and they have a smart approach to how they allocate their capital.
Speaking of capital allocation, they're sitting on a pretty hefty pile of cash, aren't they? What are they planning to do with all that dough?
Well, they're planning to strike a balance between growing their dividend, reinvesting in their business, and buying back some of their own shares to boost their stock price. But here's the really interesting part. They've hinted that they have the capacity to do some serious business development deals.
Yeah.
We're talking about potential acquisitions in the $10 to $15 billion range.
Whoa, that's a lot of firepower.
Mhm.
It sounds like they're ready to make some big moves. What kind of companies are they likely to target?
They've made it clear that any acquisitions will be strategic. They're looking for companies with breakthrough science, addressing unmet medical needs, and with the right talent to develop those innovations. Think cutting-edge therapies potentially in areas like oncology, rare diseases, or even gene therapy.
Okay, so they're not just looking to get bigger. They're looking to get better.
Yeah.
This is definitely a company to keep an eye on.
Absolutely. They're in a great position to capitalize on opportunities and drive growth in the years to come.
All right, that wraps up part one of our deep dive into Pfizer's Q4 2024 earnings call. We've covered a lot of ground, but we're just getting started. Stay tuned for part two, where we'll take a closer look at their most promising drug candidates and analyze what they could mean for patients and investors alike.
Welcome back to Talk Tickers. We just wrapped up part one of our Pfizer deep dive, and now it's time to roll up our sleeves and get into the really exciting stuff,
I'm ready.
your pipeline.
Yeah, let's geek out a little. We touched on some of their key drugs in part one, but let's zoom in on a few that have the potential to be real game changers.
All right, let's start with atirmociclib.
Okay.
Their potential blockbuster for breast cancer. They've already dosed the first patient in a massive phase 3 trial, and the initial results look very promising. This drug works by blocking CDK4, which is a protein that plays a key role in cancer cell growth.
Okay, but there are already CDK4 inhibitors on the market, right? What makes this one different?
That's a great question. This is what's called a next-generation CDK4 inhibitor, meaning it's designed to be even more effective and have fewer side effects than existing treatments. Plus, they're testing it in combination with another drug called vepdegestrant, which is an ER degrader.
ER degrader. I'm not familiar with that term.
Yeah, it's a relatively new class of drugs that work by completely destroying the estrogen receptor.
Okay.
This is a big deal because many breast cancers are fueled by estrogen. So by eliminating the receptor, you essentially cut off the fuel supply.
Got it.
Combining atirmociclib with vepdegestrant could be a 1-2 punch that significantly improves outcomes for women with advanced breast cancer.
That's amazing. It sounds like they're really pushing the boundaries of cancer treatment. What else have they got in the pipeline?
Well, let's talk about sigvotatug vedotin, their antibody drug conjugate for lung cancer. This is a really clever approach to cancer therapy. Basically, they take an antibody, which is like a guided missile, that targets a specific protein on cancer cells and attach it to a powerful toxin. So it's like delivering a potent chemo bomb directly to the tumor, minimizing damage to healthy cells.
Okay, so it's like a smart bomb for cancer. Where are they at with this one?
They're currently in late-stage trials for a type of lung cancer called non-small cell lung cancer, which is the most common type.
Right.
The early data looks very encouraging, and they're expecting to start another phase 3 trial soon in patients who haven't responded to other treatments. If this drug proves to be successful, it could be a real lifesaver for people with this devastating disease.
It's incredible how far cancer treatment has come.
Right.
But it's not just about developing new drugs. It's also about making existing ones better, right?
Exactly, and Pfizer is doing just that with orex-fio, their BCMA-directed bispecific antibody for multiple myeloma. This drug is already approved for certain patients with multiple myeloma, a type of blood cancer, and it's showing really impressive results.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What makes this drug so special?
Well, it's a type of immunotherapy that works by harnessing the power of the patient's own immune system to attack cancer cells. It's a bit technical,
Sure.
but basically it brings two different immune cells together, a T cell and a myeloma cell, so the T cell can recognize and destroy the cancer cell.
So it's like training the immune system to be a cancer-fighting ninja.
Yeah.
I like it. What's next for orex-fio?
Well, they're conducting a bunch of trials to expand its use to earlier stages of multiple myeloma, and they're even testing it in combination with other drugs. If these trials are successful, orex-fio could become a cornerstone of multiple myeloma treatment, potentially benefiting a much larger patient population.
I'm sensing a theme here. Triple the patient population. They seem to be going for home runs with these drugs.
You're right, they're not just aiming for incremental improvements, they're swinging for the fences. And it's not just cancer, they're also making big moves in the vaccine space.
Oh yeah, their vaccine program. Tell me more about that.
Well, they're about to kick off a huge phase 3 trial for their new pneumococcal vaccine, PCV25. This vaccine targets 25 different strains of Streptococcus pneumonia, a bacteria that can cause serious infections like pneumonia meningitis and sepsis.
25 strains. That's a lot. What's so special about this vaccine?
Well, current pneumococcal vaccines only cover a limited number of strains. So this new vaccine has the potential to provide much broader protection, potentially saving countless lives, particularly in young children and older adults who are most vulnerable to these infections. And get this, they're already working on a 5th-generation vaccine that could cover even more strains.
Wow, it sounds like they're on a mission to eradicate pneumococcal disease.
Okay, I think we've covered cancer and vaccines. Is there anything else we should be paying attention to in their pipeline?
Well, there's one more drug I want to highlight, danuglipron, their potential game changer for obesity. Oh yeah, that's the one that's been getting a lot of buzz lately.
Uh-huh.
What's the deal with this drug?
It's a GLP-1 receptor agonist, which is a type of drug that mimics a hormone that helps regulate appetite and blood sugar levels. These drugs have already shown incredible promise in treating type 2 diabetes, and now they're being investigated for obesity.
Okay, so it basically helps people feel fuller and eat less. What's so special about danuglipron compared to other GLP-1 drugs?
Well, early studies suggest that it may be even more effective than existing GLP-1 drugs at promoting weight loss, and it may also have a better safety profile. Plus, it's a once-daily pill, which is a huge advantage over other GLP-1 drugs that have to be injected.
A weight loss pill that actually works and is easy to take. That sounds like it could be a blockbuster.
It definitely has the potential.
Right.
They're currently conducting a bunch of trials to figure out the optimal dose and assess its long-term safety and effectiveness. If all goes well, danuglipron could be a game changer for millions of people struggling with obesity and its related health problems.
This pipeline is starting to sound like a pharmaceutical Avengers team.
I know, right?
So many potential blockbusters.
And we're not even done yet. In part 3, we'll talk about their financial strategy, their potential for big acquisitions, and what all of this means for you as an investor.
Welcome back to Talk Tickers. We spent the last 2 parts dissecting Pfizer's performance and their pipeline, and now it's time to talk about strategy. You know, they're sitting on a mountain of cash.
Yeah.
And you know what that means.
Shopping spree. But they've been pretty clear that it's not just about spending money. It's about spending it wisely.
Yeah.
They are looking for strategic acquisitions that will bolster their long-term growth.
Okay, so what does that look like in practice? What kind of companies are they likely to target?
Well, they've hinted at a few key areas. First, they're looking for companies with cutting-edge science, particularly in areas where they already have a strong presence, like oncology vaccines and internal medicine. Think gene therapy, new immunotherapy approaches, or even personalized medicine platforms.
So basically, they're looking to double down on their strengths.
Hmm.
Makes sense.
Well, they are also interested in expanding into new therapeutic areas where they see significant unmet medical needs. This could include things like rare diseases, neurodegenerative disorders, or even mental health. The idea is to diversify their portfolio and position themselves for future growth in areas with high potential.
Sounds like they're playing a long game here. But they're also facing some challenges, right?
Yeah.
We talked about the impact of the Medicare Part D changes, but what else should investors be thinking about?
Yeah, you're right. There are always risks to consider. One is competition. The pharmaceutical industry is fiercely competitive, and there are a lot of other big players out there vying for market share. Pfizer will need to stay ahead of the curve in terms of innovation and commercial execution to maintain their leadership position.
That's a great point. It's not enough to just have great drugs. You have to be able to get them to the patients who need them. What else?
Another challenge is regulatory uncertainty. The drug approval process is complex and constantly evolving, and there's always a risk that a promising drug could hit a snag in the regulatory pipeline. Pfizer will need to navigate this landscape carefully to ensure that their most promising drugs make it to market.
Okay, so competition and regulation are key things to watch. But overall, it sounds like Pfizer's in a pretty good position.
They are. They have strong financials, a robust pipeline, and a clear strategic vision for the future. Of course, there are always risks involved in any investment, but Pfizer seems well positioned to navigate the challenges ahead and deliver value to its shareholders.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, but I want to wrap things up with our favorite segment, This is not financial advice. Are you ready for this?
Hit me with it.
All right, here's a crazy but plausible trade idea. What if Pfizer decides to go all in on the obesity market? We've talked about their promising drug and danuglipron, but imagine if they combine that internal asset with a major acquisition in the space. Maybe they snag a company with a late-stage obesity drug or a platform for developing new weight loss therapies.
That would be a bold move, but it wouldn't be entirely out of character for them. They've shown that they're willing to make big bets when they see a significant opportunity.
Exactly. And the obesity market is massive and growing rapidly. If Pfizer can establish itself as a leader in this space, the potential upside is enormous. Now remember, this is just a thought experiment, not financial advice, but it's something to chew on as you watch Pfizer's moves in the coming months and years.
Definitely something to keep on your radar. Pfizer is a company that's not afraid to shake things up, and that's what makes them so exciting to follow.
All right, folks, that wraps up our Talk Tickers deep dive into Pfizer's Q4 2024 earnings call. We hope you found this breakdown insightful and entertaining. Remember, do your own research before making any investment decisions. And as always, happy investing.